Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chaos Child Part 3. Sarika and Takaru are about to go into the crime scene of the third murder so far, which is in a love hotel. They're sneaking in the back. Um, and yeah, we're just going to get right into it. So Sarika is saying the stairs are over there, though. She went in to get a drink from the vending machine. We went inside the hotel from the rear entrance and hid behind the corner that led to the lobby. This was my first time inside a love hotel, and it was a lot less gaudy than I'd expected. The name was false advertising. There were no fairies, and no one was dancing. Oh, yes, it's called Fairies Dance, I believe. Maybe the quiet atmosphere was a selling point? But. Just send someone back here. What? No. Ask Shinjo san. The silence was ruined by the sound of a police officer screaming into his phone. He was either confused or just excited because he kept saying the same things over and over again. Something had happened, after all. And something bad enough that he needed backup. This was my chance. If we could get to the scene before the place was overflowing with cops, we might be able to find an unexpected scoop. Yes, there's no doubt about it. I checked, but I can't decide that on my own. No, I told you, that's not what's going on. Damn it. That cop was in the way. Whether we took the stairs or the elevator, we needed to go through the lobby to get to them. Taku, let's go. Huh? Hurry. Wait. Sarika took me by the arm as if we were a couple and entered the lobby without trying to hide at all. Hey, come on. She ignored me and walked straight for the stairs. Hey! The cop must have seen us because he yelled at us from behind. Shit. He probably hadn't seen our faces. Should we run? No, that would just make us look suspicious. I told you not to leave your rooms. Yes, no, sorry, it's okay. Forget that. I need that backup. He started to mumble into the phone. We crossed the lobby without looking back. They made it. That was crazy. But you were right. We were able to fool him. That really scared me. That was too close for comfort. My heart was pounding so loud that the noise was making me sick. Could he not tell that we were high school students? No, even if he only saw us from behind, he should have been able to tell by our uniforms. Why didn't he arrest us? Maybe he was panicking so much that the thought never occurred to him. Okay, what's the next step? Sarika let go of my arm and turned toward me. That's right. Now isn't the time to think about other things. We don't know whether or not that room on the third floor is what we're after, but we should start there. If that doesn't work, we try other places. Once the police reinforcements arrive, we leave. But from the way that officer was acting, something was definitely up. We need to get photos before we go. Okay. It was quiet. The policeman's voice was still drifting up the stairs, but it only made the silence seem more oppressive. Just like he'd said, the customers had probably been told not to leave their rooms. It was too late for it to matter now, but I was starting to feel a little scared. Come to think of it, if something had happened, maybe the killer was still here? Hey, Taku, you're fighting with Non-chan again, aren't you? Sarika's voice was relaxed. I was grateful. I'd take any opportunity to relieve this tension. It wasn't really a fight. No, maybe it was. But you're still calling her Kurusu, right? I know how you feel, but isn't there something you can do? Until half a year ago, I'd called her Nono, her first name. After the incident that had caused me to leave the dorm, I never called her that again. As long as I kept calling her Kurusu, she'd keep being mad at me. It must have been hurting some important part of her. Taku. Interesting. So what happened to our main character? Oh. The next thing I knew, we were on the third floor. Sarika had gotten ahead of me at some point and was poking her head around the corner and into the hallway. Nobody's here, I think. Good. I took out my phone and got ready to record. As soon as I went into the third floor hallway, I found myself holding my breath. My heart was pounding even louder than when the cop had yelled at us. I tried to control myself and looked down the corridor. The rooms must have been very big because the gap between the doors was large. The floor was red, sinking into black as the hallway stretched away. I could hear the unpleasant sound of blowing air. They must have had the air conditioning on. There were no windows and there wasn't a lot of light, so the hallway looked pretty creepy, but there was nothing out of the ordinary about it otherwise. But still, it was strange. The air felt solid. It felt like someone would jump out from the shadows the second you let your guard down, or perhaps that there were traps scattered everywhere along the floor. For a second, the floor seemed to be stained with blood, but I shook that image out of my mind. What was this? It was like the fear you feel in the darkness at night. Was it just because there was so little light? No, it was worse than that. It felt like someone was watching me and enjoying my unease. It was like they were peering deep into my heart. Taku? I almost jumped off the ground with a start. Huh? What's wrong? Don't just talk to me out of nowhere like that. You scared the hell out of me. It's nothing. Hey, isn't this kind of weird? I gestured down the hallway with my head. Sarika looked past me into the darkness. Well, it's creepy because it's so dim, but isn't that just to set the mood? Was it? Was that all? Was I being too sensitive? I don't know. I tried flipping the light switch on the wall next to me, but nothing happened. Maybe the bulbs were burnt out, or maybe it wasn't the switch for this hallway at all. Damn it, this wasn't 1407 or something. Alright, let's check what that means. I want to know. Oh, a 2007 American horror movie about a hotel room where all the occupants commit suicide, based on a work by the master of modern horror, Stephen Queen. No, they... Okay, that's actually so obviously based on Stephen King. I don't know that work of his. I'm not a huge like Stephen King guy, so it must be something very similar though, just like the number. I turned around. The only person there was Sarika. No one else was looking at me. I took some time to make sure of it before I spoke. Let's go. Yeah. Sarika nodded cheerfully and stayed behind me as we walked deeper into the hallway. I remembered the location of the window I'd seen outside. It was probably deeper in the hall, the furthest one back, or the one before it. It's probably one of those two. I walked as silently as I could down the long hallway toward the last rooms on the left side. With every step I took, I could feel the sensation of the hallway floor through the bottom of my heels. It was like I was being forced to think about nerves that I had never used. My body felt very tense. I didn't see any cops in the hallway. Usually they'd at least leave one person here at the scene. Was this the wrong floor? We reached the second to last door. Room 306. Oh, here we go. I think we did a couple of positive ones last time. I mean, I think we probably did at least one of each, but... I mean, isn't it kind of more fun? He's really creeped out in this situation, so we'll probably have a really good negative one, right? So I think I'll probably go for that. I listened carefully, but didn't hear anything revealing. Just the quiet rumble of the air conditioner. Is there a peephole? Come on. This is a love hotel. Oh, right. Hey, what are you... knocking? You can't... Oh, and that's where the delusion triggers. And then suddenly the door flung open. Who the fuck is knocking on my door? An angry and very underdressed man came storming out. His hair was short and permed, and he had a gold necklace around his neck. Oh no, this guy is bad news. Sarika had frozen in surprise. Were you the one who knocked? When he glared at me, I shook my head without thinking, and then he turned his gaze towards Sarika. Then was it you? I'll teach you a lesson about what happens when you screw with me, you stupid kid. The man grabbed Sarika by the hand and tried to pull her into the room. No, let me go. You were the one who knocked. No turning back now. Taku! She turned toward me for help with tears in her eyes. Something really bad was about to happen to her. I had to do something. I had to... please stop. Shut the fuck up. I was suddenly kicked in the solar plexus. The force sent me flying all the way back to the other wall, where I collapsed to the ground. Taco! He's freaking coughing up blood. The pain was so great that I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even stand up. And then the door shut. I could hear the man's yelling and Serika's screams from within. And he's just crying. All I could do was crumple up into a ball on the ground, crying in fear and frustration. Damn. Alright, that was a pretty rough one. What if that happened? Serika was just too reckless. We didn't belong in a place like this anyways. I bit my lip and watched in fear as she kept knocking. Stop it, okay? Whoops. You sure? The police aren't here either. Maybe it's not this floor. I flinched back at the sudden noise. What? Was that the sound of glass breaking? It was from the next room over, right? She was clinging to my back in surprise with her hands on my shoulders. I think so. It came from further down, right? Serika pointed to the next room. We stood there for a moment. The violent sound must have scared her because Serika's easygoing mood had totally vanished. But we waited a while and nothing more happened. There were no voices or sounds of struggle. The hallway was the same as ever. But was I imagining it, or was the hall a little darker than before? Should we go back? Serika didn't answer my question. She didn't seem afraid, but she had a serious look on her face as she stared down the hallway. Maybe something had happened and the killer was still there? No, wait, I needed to think about this rationally. There was an officer on the first floor who'd called for backup. Usually, when a call came in, the police never went there alone. There was always more than one. I found that out for myself during my reporting, so I was sure of it. So there had to be another officer at the scene. The killer couldn't just be hiding there. If there was any chance of that, the cop wouldn't have just told us to go back into our rooms. Did the killer break the glass during a struggle? No, that didn't make sense either. If there was any chance of them being able to do that, would that officer have gone downstairs? He'd probably gone down there to tell the front desk not to let anyone else in. Damn it. I had no proof. But it should be okay. More than anything, I hadn't taken any photos yet. Uah. I jumped, literally, when I heard the sudden sound. It was a very strange sound, one that didn't belong here at all. I looked and saw that Serika had gotten so nervous that she'd taken out her Garo Froggy Garoro strap and started to play with it. She probably didn't even know she was doing it. I softly poked her with my elbow. I motioned for her to keep quiet, and she seemed confused, but then she realized what she was doing and quickly put the strap back into her pocket. As soon as she was done, I looked down the hall once more, all the way to the front of the room. We should head there. I tried to steel myself, then looked over my shoulder once more to make sure no one was there. I started to walk forward, very carefully. I was afraid of making even the slightest sound. Serika followed me wordlessly with her hand on my shoulder. I grabbed her hand with my free hand. The other was holding my smartphone. She squeezed it tight. The feeling of her hand kept me strong as I walked forward. Alright, let's see it. The next room, room 305, the room at the far end of the hallway. Just like room 306, it had a plain old door, but it felt like it was exuding an intense pressure. This is where it came from, right? She was asking about the sound. I think so, I answered, despite not having any proof at all. We waited, but still heard nothing. I looked around once more to make sure no one was there, then put my ear up against the door. And then I heard a small sound. It was the sound that I'd heard outside. I'd heard outside. The sound from the windows, like a music box playing. It was relaxed and peaceful, even if we weren't, and played the same tune over and over. This is the room, the one with the open windows. Serika was looking at me. Will it open? No, that's... I hesitated, but she put her hand on the doorknob. It opened. Nope, I guess it didn't open. She seemed relieved, but a little upset. I knew exactly how she felt. I felt the same way. I moved away from the door. I would have liked to take some more photos before I left, but... Ooh. Huh? Did you just hear the sound of a lock? Yeah, that was what it sounded like. We were too confused to move. There was no sign of anyone coming out. I slowly touched the doorknob. Getting your fingerprints on the crime scene? It turned. The door was unlocked. How? As if guided by all the strange things that were happening, I pushed the record button on my smartphone. I gripped the doorknob tighter. A voice in my mind told me to stop, to go back, but it was wiped out by the sound of the smartphone recording starting and the door slowly opening. The more it opened, the less I was able to ignore my curiosity. It felt like something besides Serica was pushing me forward as I opened the door. Let's see. For real. That song was playing in the dimly lit room. All the lights were off, but the sun outside was streaming through the open window. Its light was very weak. The curtain in front of me, which partitioned off a part of the room, was blocking the light. I gulped and realized my lips were dry. I ran my tongue over them to wet them a little, and then I realized my heart was pounding. The sound was so loud I thought my heart might have somehow moved up into my ears. It seemed to be beating out some bizarre rhythm, and it was making me sick. I forced myself to swallow my saliva and hoped it would keep me from throwing up. Then I took a slow step forward. I held up my phone to record what I was seeing, and then I realized something. That curtain wasn't partitioning the room. It was a bed. There was a raised spot off the floor with a circular bed surrounded by a curtain. The light was streaming out from behind it. The windows we'd seen were on the other side of it, and the song seemed to be coming from there as well. Crap, it was too dark. I went to flip the nearby light switch, then forced myself to stop. No, I couldn't touch anything in the room. Some kind of crime must have taken place here. But I was scared to go any deeper into the darkness, and yet they touched the doorknob. My shoes made my steps sound loud against the floor. There was no response, only the relaxed melody. I gave a signal to Serica, who was still behind me, and went deeper into the room. What? For a moment, I thought I heard the sound of creaking metal. It felt like I was hearing it between the gaps in the music box's melody. But there was no change that I could see. No one jumped out, nothing was moving. There was just the sound of the music box. I looked from one part of the room to another to make sure nothing was amiss. And then I slowly moved forward. Oh. Someone was lying on the floor. Huh? When my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw... Oh, shit. A police officer. And a woman? The officer was lying up against the bathroom with his legs splayed and his head drooping. The girl was lying on the floor face down. They showed no sign of noticing us. No, that wasn't right. The glass behind them was shattered into 1,000 pieces. Oh, God. The second I understood what was going on, my hand holding the smartphone started to shake. Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God. I could see a little blood dripping from the police officer's head. I spun around as I heard the sound. The warmth drained from my face in an instant and my whole body shivered. Someone's sitting on the bed. I staggered back and slammed into Serica. Let's get out of here, now. But I couldn't move. My hand was frozen as it pointed the smartphone toward whoever was behind the curtain, and it wasn't doing what I told it to. Damn it! I took a step back, tripped, and then fell to the floor. My lungs weren't working right. The silhouette moved a little, and I flinched. No, it didn't move. The bed was rotating. Whoever was behind the curtain showed no sign of noticing us. They didn't budge an inch. What the hell is going on here? Taku, the door won't open! Sarka's voice sounded like it was far away. I ran back to the entrance and slammed myself into the door. It's not opening. It's not opening! Why won't it open? I don't know! Serica yelled back at me. Why? Why? Serica screamed as she slammed against the door. I helped her try to batter it down. But it didn't work. It was like trying to batter down a wall. Suddenly, I heard a knock at the door. I reflexively jumped away without thinking. Knock, 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 knock. It was coming from behind this door. The knocking was rhythmic and constant. Well, what? It was just a knock at the door, but my whole body started to shake. Someone was on the other side of the door. Someone was knocking. It definitely wasn't the police. I felt as if my sanity was boiling away, melting out from the soles of my feet on upward. No. Don't open that door. Right. Go out the back. Let's use the window. I grabbed Sarika's hand and ran to the back of the room. And fell silent at what I saw. Huh? No. What is that? The curtain was open. There was a man there, sitting. No, he was moving slowly. The bed was moving in time to the sound of the music box. An eerie sound came from the wire wrapped around his neck. They're screaming. I'm not going to scream into your ears. The wire was hanging down from the ceiling, choking him. His face was all puffed up, and it was a color I'd never seen before. His pants were wet, and the stain extended to the bed itself. The smell of piss and shit hung in my nose. He wasn't alive. He was dead. What the hell is this? Why was he dead? Did he suffocate? Why was the curtain open? And what the hell was he doing? Why was he dead? My right hand moved without me realizing it. Huh? I needed to use the window to escape. But I pointed my phone's camera at the body instead. Taku, we need to get out of here! The body spun slowly. Each time it went around, the wire made an awful sound and dug deeper into his neck. It had dug in so deep by now that the man's neck was the size of my wrist. The skin must have been broken because it was bleeding a little. Ugh. Taku! What am I doing? Sarika was right next to me, but her voice sounded far away, like she was talking through a telephone. I needed to get out of here, but I couldn't stop the filming. Why was I doing this? Why was he dead? The wire dug deeper and deeper into his neck without waiting for me to come up with an answer. The body turned away from me. I could see the back of his neck. The flesh around the wire was swollen red and black. I heard a muffled sound like something hard snapping inside of a bag. The head slumped just a little. Ugh. Ugh. His neck had just broken. That must have been the sound of his neck breaking. Taku, let's get out of here! I could hear Sarika's voice. Get out of here. Get out of here. That's right, I need to get out of here! My body moved as I heard another sound. I spun around. What the hell? Oh. Ah! I screamed. And then I heard something from behind me. I don't know what I did, but the next thing I knew, my whole field of vision had turned red. Then I felt something like a ball hit me. Before I could understand what it was, everything faded to black. Damn. Okay, that escalated quickly. September 30th, 2015, Wednesday. midnight. Oh, here we go. Shinjo-san, we've managed to ID the victim from his possessions and the security cameras. His name is Kakita Hironori, 22 years old, a Shibuya resident with a part-time marketing job at SafeWorks. A part-timer at SafeWorks? Any lovers? None. No roommates either. He lived alone, it seems. Shit. Shinjo cursed. If he was single and not in a relationship, it would take time to figure out his private life. And SafeWorks was one of the companies that had profited the most from the recovery projects in recent years. Part-timer or not, if he worked there, he was probably pretty busy. It was possible that his coworkers knew just his name and nothing else about who he was outside of work. Shinjo-san, what do we tell the media? Kayomi TV and Nikoniya's net reporters are refusing to leave. And those two kids we found at the scene who said they're with the Hekiho newspaper club, they've calmed down, but they're still not making a lot of sense. That other girl doesn't have anything that would tell us who she is. We're checking if she's a friend or relative of Kakita's, but no luck yet. She's refusing to say anything. Also, forensics wanted to know. Hey, you can't just... This is Watabe from Nikoniya News. Excuse me, what's going on here? Get out! You can't come in here without permission. Just a brief comment. A brief comment is all I need. Shinjo's men physically dragged the reporter out of the room. He had to stop himself from putting his hands to his head and moaning. He couldn't let his men see him acting weak. Shinjo had been with Police HQ's Section 1 for less than 7 years. He didn't get along with his superiors, but he'd managed to beg his way into being in charge of this case. Maybe this was his way of avenging the death of an older detective who he'd admired. Once you're done looking at the window frame, make sure it can't be seen from the outside. There's no telling what those net reporters will do. Yes, sir. I'll talk to forensics myself. Oh, and put some more manpower into checking his connections at work. I'll tell the bosses. Yes, sir. So what about those kids? I'll handle them too. Get to it. Yes, sir. His men raced out of the room. They'd never had a case like this before, and they were probably pretty excited. So was Shinjo, to be honest. The whole thing was such a mess that he didn't even know where to begin, but his detective's instincts were screaming at him to start doing the work needed to find the killer. Okay. What's he doing? Oh, making a phone call. Hello, this is the Frisia Credit Bureau? His call was answered on the first ring, like always. It's me. Oh, Shinjo-chan, you're late. I thought you'd be contacting me earlier. I'm sorry. Shinjo apologized without thinking, and for no clear reason. He'd always felt like a naughty child when he spoke to this CEO, who happened to be a woman. You know why you're so exhausted? It's because you're taking this so seriously. Whoops, went a little fast there. You should relax a bit, like they did. I've got no intention of copying their habits. You're so serious, aren't you? If you keep on thinking that's a virtue, you're going to have a bad time of it one day. Momose-san, there's something I wanted to talk to you about. Shinjo cut her off before she could continue her lecture, and gave her a brief description of the scene. This was a violation of the rules, but the only way to solve a crazy case was to be a little crazy yourself. That was the first thing he learned from that older detective. So is it murder or suicide? Momose asked her question after he described the situation. She cut to the heart of the problem. We're not sure right now. The hotel had gotten suspicious when Kakita had never come down after checkout time. When more than 10 calls to the room went unanswered, they'd contacted the police. 2 officers, as well as someone from the hotel, had gone to the room, where they found the body and an unconscious girl. One officer stayed at the scene to keep it secure, and the other searched the hotel to make sure it was safe. During the search, he'd forgotten to lock the employee entrance in the back near the stairs. That was how the 2 students from Hekiho had gotten in. Shortly after he'd left the room, the girl woke up and started strangling the officer who'd stayed behind. He hit his head on the edge of the glass window and knocked himself out. He was going to be fine, but he'd been out cold until backup arrived. Okay, so that cop lived. When the backup got there, they found the girl unconscious on the floor. A boy from Hekiho was passed out on the floor too. The other girl from Hekiho was throwing up, also on the floor. That's kind of funny. Kakita's cause of death was asphyxiation via strangulation. Or asphyxia via strangulation. I kind of combine them there. The wire around his neck was a kind used at construction sites. It had been hung in an X pattern from the lights on the ceiling, and he'd been sitting on the bed as it rotated. That's why there was so much pressure on his neck that finally his head had been severed. Oh god, and that's what hit Takaru. From the estimated time of death, Kakita had passed away before the police had even been contacted. Makes sense. The body on the bed kept spinning in time to the music, 1 rotation every 2 minutes. In the end, the man's head had been cut off completely. The problem was the girl in the room. There was no indication that she'd ever touched Kakita. There were no fingerprints or any other signs that she'd touched Kakita's body, the bed, or the wire. The only things they'd found under her fingernails were skin and blood from the officer she'd strangled. In fact, there was no indication she'd touched much of anything in the room. Everything they found belonged to Kakita. And according to the officer she'd strangled when she attacked him, she had clearly been in an unstable psychological state. Her eyes had been bloodshot and out of focus. So what are you trying to say here? This girl just watched Kakita die without touching anything in the room, and then started strangling a police officer while temporarily insane? Shinjo scratched his head as he heard her sum up the situation. That was what it looked like, at least from what they knew right now. And just going by that, it sure looked like a suicide. But it was all far too strange. I see. This is a bit of a problem. What about these kids from Hekiho that got inside the room? It seems like it was pretty traumatic for them, so at first they wouldn't say anything, but now they're starting to talk. But they're from Hekiho, and that place has some issues. He checked with the school and verified that they were part of the school's newspaper club. The security camera at the rear entrance had seen them coming in, which matched up with their testimony. But he didn't know what to make of their testimony that the door had opened on its own or that someone else had tried to come into the room. The door was equipped with an automatic lock, and the only person inside the room who could have opened it was that girl. But there was no sign of her fingerprints on the door. And the security camera in the hallway showed no signs of anyone else trying to go in. In any event, it was extremely rare for a civilian to see a dead body outside of a funeral. And in an unstable mental state, it would be extremely easy for them to imagine things or just outright be mistaken about what was going on. If they turned out to not have any relationship to Kakita or the girl, he planned to let them off with a stern warning. Our biggest lead is the girl who was in the room, but she's not talking. She's probably going to be put under psychiatric hold at this rate, right? Yeah, but that will slow down the investigation a lot, so I'd rather not go that route. Got it. Let me get some information spread around. Given your position, this is probably going to be pretty rough for you, so be ready, okay? I'll call back in 3 minutes. Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Shinjo went to hang up the phone. Oh, wait. Yeah? Actually, I want you to do something for me. I'm sure it'll be a big help for you, too. Can you do it? So it was basically an order then, Shinjo thought to himself. What is it? One of my kids knows more about this than I do, and they say they want to see the crime scene personally. Can you help them out? You want me to let an outsider into a crime scene? It's always outsiders who will give you the hints you need to solve the case. After all, I'm an outsider too, she continued. In his head, Shinjo went over the steps he'd have to take and the time required to take them. Can it be tomorrow, or no, the day after? That's my Shinjo-chan. Glad we could work this out. I don't know how you manage around the rest of those hardheads in Section 1. Alright, talk to you later. Hold on a second, Shinjo-chan, would you? He barely stopped himself from ending the call. Is there something else? I wanted to give you some advice, just in case. 2 things. First, what I said before wasn't a joke, okay? Huh? You need to relax a little. Don't take everything so seriously. I'm sure a lot of things are about to happen that will be beyond your understanding. When that happens, your worst enemy is what you think you know. I'll make sure to remember that. If that was a serious answer, then you've still got a long ways to go. And the other thing is... Momose paused for a second and chuckled. Don't let my kid get the better of you too often. If you let your guard down, you'll end up an outsider yourself. September 30th, 2015, Wednesday. Hey, did you see that thing on Tweepo? Oh yeah, the meme from Hekiobot? A giant Upa with a smug look on its face, sitting on the Shibuya Hikiriwo, and saying, Shibuya sure has changed. Hikariwo. Yeah, that one's really kind of sad. Could we use that for the Culture Festival? Nobody's going to look at a display about the history of Shibuya's recovery anyway. Is it enough to just have the picture, though? We need to actually have stuffed animals or something. The male student started to search through Shibuya's stores with his smartphone. He must have found something strange because he kept mumbling, "No way!" Ito was recording the newspaper club's project for the festival, a bunch of random footage of the preparations in the cafeteria. Is this really the right time to be all excited over something like that, guys? A body had just been found in Dogenzaka yesterday, and all these students cared about was their stupid jokes. The body was found less than 10 minutes away from the school, but they barely even mentioned it. Well, it really hasn't hit the news too much yet, but... The first reports had been on a major communication company's website. That was where Ito had seen it. It had been last night. It had made the morning news and the morning papers, but all that had been reported was that a body had been found and that no details were known. And it was rare for a high school kid to check the TV news and papers every day. That's for sure. There was no word from Miyashiro. Ito was really worried about what had happened at the Love Hotel, but he had no way of asking about it. Damn it. He took out his phone even though he knew he hadn't gotten any calls. Sure enough, there were no messages. He'd been doing that a lot since yesterday. He couldn't bring himself to make a call. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to say to a friend who'd been taken away by the police. The laughing students irritated Ito in a way that he didn't really understand. He'd been planning on videotaping the entire cafeteria today, but instead he gave up and left. You filming? Hope it's going okay. He went inside the club room and saw Kurusu there. Any word? Kurusu's expression clouded over for a moment as she shook her head. Nothing since then. I see. Wakui, the club advisor, had told him that Kurusu had taken a change of clothes from Miyashiro to the police station last night. She'd been told that neither Miyashiro nor Onoe were hurt. The police were probably going to let them off with a warning, and if they weren't suffering any after effects from the trauma, they'd be let go in the morning. But school was over. It was almost evening, and there was still no word from either of them. Ito dropped into his chair. Damn it, the school's so peaceful. Barely anybody's talking about what happened yesterday. I see. I mean, sure, there are about 2 murder reports a week in Tokyo, so I know it's not exactly a new thing, but... Still, Dogenzaka's right next door. It's possible someone walks by that place on their way to school. Actually, I bet someone does. Maybe it's like he always says, and none of these people ever read the real news. Do you have any idea how transparent you are? Kurusu chuckled. Huh? You're worried about the two of them, right? Ito started to speak, but then choked it back. Not really. Aren't you the one who's worried, Miss Vice President? Ridiculous, she chuckled. I'm angry. This whole thing is ridiculous. Serika is one thing, but he ignored my warning and went in anyway, and this is what happened. He's making you do all the filming for the newspaper club, too. No, I don't really care. It's not that big of a deal. It is. When you're given a job, you need to do it. Is this it? Kurusu, what's going on with the budgets? Kawahara entered. He was very out of breath. Huh? The budgets? The list of groups that have gone over their budget. Accounting says it's not in yet. Kurusu frowned as she realized her mistake. Sorry, I'll send you an email with the list. ASAP, okay? Before the teacher goes home. Kawahara ran off before Kurusu had time to answer. And before he was even out of sight, Kurusu had booted up the PC and started tapping at the keys. What? No, it's nothing. Which of us is more transparent? That's what Ito was about to say before he stopped himself. Normally, it was impossible to imagine Kurusu not doing her job. For a while after that, Kurusu focused intently on her work. Ito didn't have much else to do, so he watched her. When he looked carefully, he could see small dark circles under her eyes. She probably hadn't slept. And then Ito realized for the first time that Kurusu had probably come to the club room to see if either of them had contacted him. With all the preparations that were going on, there was no other reason for her to be here. The Empress of all people, huh? Kurusu pressed down hard on one final key as she finished her task. Then, suddenly, an unpleasant sound filled the room. What is it? Hey. I know. Oh. They looked over and saw that Kazuki was nibbling on dried squid as she played her game, oblivious to everything around her. Ito had seen her come in after Kurusu had started her work. He'd thought she might say hello, but knowing her, probably not. He'd also seen her start to play her game. He'd been trying not to bring it up, but that was clearly impossible now. She must have been concentrating pretty hard. Her gaze was constant and steady. Ito sighed. She's always stuck in her own little world, isn't she? Maybe she doesn't care about anyone else. Of course that's not true. She's just a little stronger-willed than most people. Even so, she's in the same club as them, he wanted to say, but Kurusu stopped him with a raised hand. She looked down at Kazuki's game screen. Evidently not. Huh? Kurusu chuckled and took off Kazuki's headphones. Kazuki, I'm not a big gamer, so correct me if I'm wrong, but... Is there a reason you're continually flinging fireballs at the side of a house? That fire's spreading really fast. Hmm? Kazuki looked back at the screen with a stunned expression on her face. She yanked the headphones out of Kurusu's hands and quickly put them on, then started to pound at the keyboard. Calm down. Either swallow that squid or spit it out. What you're doing now is bad manners. Kazuki may or may not have heard her, because she struggled with her game for a while, and then... She froze like a toy whose batteries had run out. The squid she'd been chewing fell out of her mouth and landed on the desk. She stared at it for almost 30 seconds, as if something impossible had just happened. Then she silently stood up and staggered over to the shelf where the electric coffee maker was kept, her mannerisms rivaling that of an incredibly fierce drunkard. Her face had turned pale. Kazuki, are you okay? Are you going to make us coffee? Kazuki nodded in response to Ito's second question and started to make coffee with shaking hands. She made Kurusu her usual with 2 cubes of sugar and gave Ito a coffee mixed with milk. Then she made a cup for herself, black, but didn't drink a drop. Her forehead slammed into the desk with a thud, and she became so quiet that it was impossible to tell if she was breathing. See? Kurusu looked to Ito for agreement as she cleaned up Kazuki's squid. Wait, really? He took a sip from his coffee, not sure what to think. To him, none of this made any sense. Kurusu didn't say another word as she drank her coffee. Ito looked up at the blank ceiling and decided that this was as good a time as any to ask. It wasn't that it was wrong, but it still felt kind of awkward. Hey, what? Is there a reason he's so obsessed with this case? Kurusu froze. She lowered her gaze as if searching for answers in her coffee cup. What about you? You seem pretty interested in it yourself. She seemed to be trying to change the subject. I just like this stuff. This stuff? Weird murder cases and stuff. But still, running into a crime scene like he did yesterday was... That was going too far, he continued. Kurusu silently took another sip of her coffee. She seemed to be staring at a single point in the distance, lost in thought. It was clear that while she was seeing the things around her, she wasn't paying attention to any of them. Seeing her like this scared Ito a little. Was it really that big a deal? If you don't want to tell me, that's not it. I'm sure that basically Takaru's the same as you. He likes this stuff. And he's always liked getting involved in things that are dangerous. I see, Ito said. You two started living together in elementary school, right? Yeah, that's right. A little after the earthquake, to be precise. Just about the time when I would have been entering middle school. Kurusu and Miyashiro were both what people called earthquake orphans. They'd both been in 6th grade when they'd lost their parents to the earthquake. Since they had no relatives to take them in, they'd been sent to the same orphanage, a group home known as Aoba Dormitory. Kids like them weren't common in Shibuya these days, but they weren't exactly rare either. Miyashiro had been so badly injured during the earthquake that he'd become comatose. He was still in that coma when he arrived at the dorms. The head of the dorm was also the head doctor of the Aoba clinic downstairs, and so for a while that was where Miyashiro was kept. Kurusu had taken care of literally all his needs. There were 4 kids at the facility. Kurusu and Miyashiro were the oldest. Since her birthday was earlier than his, she dubbed herself the oldest of the 4 siblings and volunteered to take care of the other 3. Even back then, Miyashiro had a habit of being curious and getting into trouble. He's a bit of a brat, you know? He says that he's different from everyone else all the time, even though that's not true. She spoke like a parent worried for her child's future. But in the end, he... Hello, everyone. Oh, I didn't think I'd see you here, Kurusu-kun. Well, there he is. Have you heard anything from them, Mr. Wakui? The club advisor, Wakui, was quite relaxed as he came into the room. Kurusu quickly stood up and rushed over to him. He nodded and motioned for her to calm down. Yeah, just now. Is everything okay? Huh? Of course. Hey, Ito-kun, get to the gym now. Huh? The gym? Why? The Light Music Club says they're about to do a rehearsal. It should be good footage for the culture festival. Kurusu's expression froze, and suddenly it changed. Is that really what you heard, Mr. Wakui? Yeah, that's right. What's up, Kurusu-kun? You look so happy. Oh, I seem happy to you? I'm going now. You're coming too, Mr. Wakui. Huh? Wait. Sensing a gathering storm of violence, Ito pushed Wakui out the door. Kazuki had looked up for a moment, but then she slammed her head back on the desk. Now that she was all alone, Kurusu took out her phone and checked it. There was no message, of course. She sighed and looked at the board. That incident yesterday at the Love Hotel. Whether it was murder or suicide, from the way Miyashiro and Onoe had looked when they'd been taken by the police, something had happened. Miyashiro had said it had something to do with the incident 6 years ago. Now that it had happened 3 times, there was no ignoring it. No, it was too dangerous. She couldn't let him get any more involved in this. She thought back to Ito's question about why Miyashiro was so interested in this case. Kazuki was still lying with her head on the desk. When she turned her head to the side, she looked like she was enjoying herself for some reason. When Kurusu saw that, she suddenly lost her desire to drink the coffee. Apologizing in her mind to Kazuki, she decided to pour it out at the water fountain. She headed to the water fountain upstairs, which was usually less crowded. She found herself looking down at the gaps between the tiles as the sound of her footsteps rang in her ears. She could tell that she was walking slower than usual. Essentially, Kurusu was lonely. She remembered what she'd said to Miyashiro the day he first woke up in the clinic. I'm Kurusu? No, call me by my first name. We're family, so it'd be weird to call each other by our last names, right? Okay. But they're adopted family. In the end, he just wants to pretend that he's special. She knew why, she supposed. The event that had caused him to leave the dorm was still bothering him. November 7th, 2009. This way, please, come this way. This must be during the earthquake. I'm telling you, we can get around from the back. How many times do I have to... Save us, someone! Why won't the phones work? I wanted water. We're looking from Takaru's perspective, if you didn't see that down there. I could still feel the sensation of the dead woman I'd touched when I'd fallen on my hands, and I wanted to wash it off. I wanted to wash my face, too. The wind from the flames had blown something small into my eye, and it itched badly. I was thirsty, too. Sarika was on my back, and she showed no signs of waking up. Damn it. My legs were at their limit, so I forced my way through the crowd and sat down on a tire that had rolled nearby. It smelled like burning rubber. I didn't have the energy to apologize to the people I ran into, and they didn't have the energy left to complain. I slowly brought Sarika to rest on my knees and looked around. I saw an orange light. The light of the fires reflected off of many things. It was pretty, I thought, before I realized how inappropriate that was. For some reason, I started to count the bodies on the ground, not knowing if they were alive or dead. But in less than 5 seconds, I'd gotten way over 10 and realized how futile it was. I stopped. Shibuya Station was utterly destroyed. The 107 building, which was only a few minutes away by foot, was ruined as well. 5 whole hours after the earthquake, the chaos had only increased. There were fewer people out walking, but I wasn't sure if that was because they'd reached safety or because they'd collapsed from exhaustion. I saw someone carrying his own severed arm in a convenience store bag. I saw people ignore a barefoot woman as she cradled a baby whose head was smashed in. Some had outright given up on sanity and were flinging themselves into the fire. A group of middle-aged businessmen were dragging a young girl into the darkness. A young man went to join them. This is hell. There was no other way to describe it. This was hell. Sarika moaned a little in my lap. I slapped her cheeks to wake her up. Onoe? Onoe! Her face warped in agony. It was okay. She was breathing. She was okay. We're heading to Yoyogi, okay? You know, that big general hospital. You remember, right? We snuck in there once when we were little. Instead of answering, she just moved her eyebrows a little. I swore and lifted her up on my back again. She didn't seem to be that badly hurt, but this kept happening. I read on Twipo that the general hospital in front of Yoyogi Station was accepting patients injured in the earthquake. I didn't know that it was true, but I had no choice but to go. It had to be better than the hell that Shibuya was now. Don't die! I yelled, unsure if Sarika could even hear me, and started walking. I just needed to get to the hospital. Oh my god. Okay. Ah, so that's where he lives. I leapt up. I quickly glanced to the left and right as I tried to calm my racing heart. I saw that it was in my own bed, that I was in my own bed. I felt exhausted. I also felt really thirsty. Maybe it was because I'd had the dream again. I searched around until I found the bottle of water by my bedside, took a gulp, and then grabbed the phone off my bed to check the time. 12:17 a.m. It's a new day, huh? It was around noon when the police would let me go from Shibuya Station with a warning. I'd gone home and went straight to bed, so it seemed I had been out of it for more than 12 hours. This was no good. Maybe I'd slept too long, or maybe I hadn't slept enough because my head felt like it was filled with lead. No, maybe not. I put my hands up to the thin light that was coming through the window and checked their color. They were the same as always. There was no blood on them. Oh, God. Ugh. I suddenly felt like I wanted to throw up. I hoped another drink of water would help, but it didn't. Damn it. I thought for a moment and then decided to turn on the room lights. I turned on my laptop. I ran a search for foods or drinks that help with nausea. The internet gave me page after page of results. I checked a bunch of pages, just like you're supposed to when you're looking something up. Ginger, huh? I guess I've got that kakonto that Gensan gave me. I looked under the sink until I found the kakonto powder, then poured it into a cup and added some hot water from the electric kettle. It had a strange smell, unlike anything I was used to. I took a sip. I could tell that my hands were shaking a little as I held the cup. Damn it, that wasn't the first time I've seen a body. I checked the phone again and saw that there were several messages from Serika and Karusu. I was about to respond, but stopped. They were probably still up, but I didn't feel like talking to anyone. It felt like the air I'd breathed in at the Love Hotel yesterday was still deep inside me, along with the cheerful melody of the music box and the red that covered my vision. I felt something strange on my cheek and put a hand up to feel it. It was a bandage. I'd gone to some kind of clinic at the police station where they'd put it on. They told me I must have hit my face hard on the floor when I'd passed out. I was unlucky enough to scrape my cheek against a piece of the shattered glass. Thankfully, it wasn't a big wound. It barely hurt at all. But it itched like hell. And each time it itched, the shock I'd felt back then came rushing back, and my heart would start racing. The danger was long gone, but I still couldn't forget the terror. Had I almost been caught up in something horrible? No. I'm fine, right? I'm not like everyone else. I'm not an amateur. I went through that hell I just dreamed about and survived. Okay. Maybe having that nightmare again was good for me. I managed to force down the urge to vomit, then clicked away at the computer. I opened my computer's TV program, changed the channel to a news program, and watched it on my monitor. A few months ago, I'd bought a USB TV tuner off of a homeless guy who had no idea what it was worth. All it cost me was dinner at a local restaurant. Just like I thought, there was an article about the events of 2 days ago. All they said was that a man's body was found in a Dogenzaka love hotel. They didn't say whether it was suicide, murder, or just an accident. There was nothing about the girl who'd been found at the scene. Or about me and Serika. I see. I figured this was what I'd get. I'd never experienced for myself the gap between what happened at a crime scene and what was reported on TV, but it didn't really surprise me. These days, the internet was a lot faster at reporting things than TV. To people who followed the news online, TV wasn't a place to learn new things. It was where you went to see if something you'd heard about was so important that it was getting TV coverage. What about the people online? I closed the TV program and opened a browser. Nikoniya News had something on it too. I clicked on the uploaded video. Another incident has occurred in Shibuya. This makes for 3 strange incidents so far. Just like always, it was Watabe, the attention-seeking internet reporter. He was famous for charging into crime scenes to get scoops. Lately, he seemed to be getting a little too cocky. He explained what had gone on at the Love Hotel as the video showed pictures that he had probably taken himself. Either way, I think the police are hiding something. The only announcement has been that a body was found, but if that's all, then why would... And then, like always, he started to mix in his own suggestive opinions with the news. He was right, the police were hiding something, but there was little point in listening to the rest of this. Vague information would just get in the way. This is all you can expect from the masses on the internet, I guess. I mostly ignored Watabe's voice as I looked at the video on the screen. He must have gotten it by charging into the hotel room. What the hell was all that? I thought back to what had happened. A man was strangled to death in his room. There was an unconscious girl and a police officer there as well. The girl was the most obvious suspect. Even if she chose a strange way to do it, she must have been the one who killed him, right? No, if she had definitely killed him, then they would have announced that. She was arrested, just like I was. Over 30 hours had passed. Even if they'd found out she was innocent, they should have announced that. The police believe that the girl with him may know something and are proceeding with their investigation. Like that. Did the police think that she didn't do it? Then what was she doing in that room? And even if the police had told me during the interrogation that I'd imagined it, I knew what I'd heard. Someone else had visited that room and knocked on the door. The sound was eerie and always had the same rhythm. I felt a cold chill and idly turned toward the door. Ooh, okay. I think we are going to stop today's episode here and start the next episode strong with a delusion. Because it's also easy to tell what's going on. We're in his place, and he's about to have a delusion. Maybe we'll make it a positive one. We'll see how I feel when I start the next episode. Join me then to see what happens.